Alan Partridge here. If you want to do some writing on air, then listen to Chapel FM.
So, good evening and welcome to the penultimate programme in Writing on Air 2024. I am up in the Radio Theatre with James Lewis Moran, who's been around the whole time as our kind of poet in residence from Seacrest. Let's give James a big round of applause. He's been here the whole time. And he is every Writing on Air. He's an absolute asset to what we do here, and he's always writing poetry or making other people write it, which is even better. So for this period of time, we've had a wonderful object here with us in Chapel FM. And there's Brona just walked in, who is responsible for this lovely recovery chair. We call it, but they call it the Leeds Church Institute, the Sanctuary Chair. And James is sitting in it. If you're watching live stream, he's looking very regal in his chair there, sitting on some poetry. You don't usually sit on poetry, you write it. But we had some... how does it feel, by the way, James?
Very comfy. I am in need of recovery after this arduous writing festival.
Well, I can see you recovering as we speak. So there are some cards that we put out for people to fill in, write what they felt about, we call it the recovery chair, as I say, so about recovery, what they felt about recovery. I'm going to read one, James is going to read one, then I'm going to read another. Then we're going to hear a pre-recorded interview with Brona and with Rachel Flint, who is the poet who is responsible for the poetry which is written all over this lovely chair. So first of all, this is one, all these are anonymous. Similar to when your car breaks down and a recovery vehicle comes to take it away to the garage for a full diagnosis. Sometimes it takes a breakdown to realise you need fuel and rest. And the odd time, your screws need tightening. Lovely, thank you. James.
I want to sit here, breathe deeply, and then, when I rise, leave behind my stress, irrational worries and a history of trauma. I want to sit here and be truly present, feel my shoulders drop, no more tense muscles, only the moment I am in.
Beautiful. Another one. I recovered when I learned to accept and love myself. When I got it right, I celebrated. And when I got it wrong, I learned and made it right the next time. James, it's been a fantastic 10 days. I've really enjoyed it. And how have you felt about it? Just the sheer range and quality of the programmes that people have come up with has been astonishing. So, thank you to all the programme makers. What about yourself? Any particular reflections?
Oh, gosh. I think I need to recover first and collect my thoughts, but there are many programmes I want to revisit. There are many that I definitely want to listen again to. I still have some photographs from tonight to filter through and send to their respective performers, and I like that connection that photography can give, the writing can give, and it's fair to say that people have explored the theme and done it justice.
They have indeed. Well, let's return to the theme and to the recovery chair. We're going to hear this interview now about how this chair came to be. In Studio 2 in Chapel FM Arts Centre with Brona and Rachel. We're going to be talking about the famous chair, which we have really been looking forward to hosting here at Chapel FM for Writing on Air. We call it the recovery chair, but Brona, I'm sure you might call it something different. But Brona, first of all, if I could ask you, first of all, who you are and what you do.
My name is Brona Daly, and I am the Faith and Creativity Lead at Leeds Church Institute. and my job is to use fine art as a conduit for discussion and dialogue on some of the hardest to talk about social injustice issues that face our city through a theological lens.
Wow, I think you've said that before, haven't you?
A few times.
A few times. And we'll be coming to you. Hello, Rachel. How are you doing? First of all, could you just say who you are and what you're doing?
I'm a friend to learn a bit.
That's a brilliant way of introducing yourself. I was in a meeting once with Simon Armitage, and he said exactly the same. He said, I'm Simon Armitage, and I'm a poet. And I thought the simplicity of that here. So thanks very much, Rachel. It's clear, isn't it? As a poet. So, Bernard, tell us a little about the chair and how it came to be.
I imagined a piece of art that you could sit in, and I reflected on a phrase that I've heard for quite a while called "the God who speaks," and I imagined what would it be like to sit in a chair and God would listen to you, and whilst you either had thoughts in your head or a petition that you wanted to ask about, and that idea stayed with me for a while, and then I just thought I need to do something about it. So I reached out, and Rachel's name was, I was encouraged to speak to Rachel, and I was also encouraged to speak to another woman of faith called Julia Heiliger. So it started from just having this idea and having a little bit of courage and bravery myself to say, as an artist, how do I put my faith into action to create a piece of art that you can feel held in? And Rachel was a real inspiration for me, because we talked really openly about Rachel and the wheelchair that holds her and enables her, and we talked about how can we make the piece of art accessible to people who just may not get a chance to see it or touch it or sit in it. So we talked about how we could have a QR code and what would that lead to.
That was in this idea, to be fair.
So we talked about how do we make this piece of art really accessible. So we produced a short film about the making of it, and a camera crew followed Rachel, myself, Julia, and another woman of faith, Anna. And the film is really about how do you get an idea to reality, and it's called Staying with the Struggle. It's really hard as an artist and as a poet and as a maker to get your idea out into the world. So the film is about that. And then we have a learning resource with a QR code that shows the film. And we really want as many people to have this in their churches, their schools, their community groups, but also maybe even at Leeds Market or maybe even at the train station. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have a piece of art that people could feel what it's like to feel safe, or to really reflect on what sanctuary means to them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bernard. Well, let's come to Rachel. So, Rachel, Bernard came to you and asked you about how you might participate in the creation of this work of art. So how was it for you? What did you think when Bernard came?
It was a really cool idea, but it was a really physical idea, and I liked something you could interact with, and something that people who haven't got how to have dialogue with faith may instantly get the concept of sitting down in a chair and meditating and mindfulness.
It's really lovely, that, isn't it? The idea of I love the idea of a work of art that you can sit in, but where you feel safe, and where it's like a permission to just sit and be.
And take up space.
And take up space, absolutely. That's a brilliant idea.
We as human beings allow ourselves to take up space.
That's a really important idea, Rachel. I totally get that. And yes, I mean the idea of it being in different places. But first of all, I mean, when you look at the chair, and obviously we're on the radio now, but if you visited Chapel FM during the Festival of Writing on Air, you will have seen it and perhaps sat in it and perhaps done some writing or some reading in it. But it's covered in words. So what was your approach in terms of being a poet?
Well, first of all, it was a previously written poem that was actually a bit of therapy for me because I suffer badly with anxiety. So it was a mindfulness for me to write it as like a meditation. And like many poets do, many doctors do, you put it away and forget about it. And then this project come up and suddenly light bulb and stuff and thought, oh, I've got the perfect piece for that. And suddenly it's kind of merged and come into a different place that I could never get to on my own. And I love that about poetry in particular. I'm reminded of when John Cooper Clarke, the poem I Want to Be Yours, became a song by the Arctic Monkeys, and been put over the credits of the Sopranos. Poetry should be in places you don't expect it. Poetry can go reach people in a way that perhaps big philosophy books can.
I totally get that, Rachel, as well. I always think that the philosophy, this kind of wisdom of the world is in poetry. But I love the idea of poetry should be in places that you don't expect it to be. And actually, I've never seen poetry on a chair before. There's something really slightly transgressive about it because, as kids, you might likely do a bio mark on a piece of furniture and you got told off for that. What are you doing? You can't write on furniture, you can't write on walls. But the idea of a church that has writing all over it, it's a fantastic idea, Brenna.
That was part of the methodology as well. The colour of the fabric that we chose. Well, the fabric for a start is an eco-friendly fabric. We discerned about how to make sure it is sustainable as possible. But the colour reflects Rachel's favourite colour. We chose lilac. We really thought about the colour. We spent a long time, it's in the film actually, that we spent a long time looking at the colour of the fabric, but we also chose the colour of the ink to represent a blue biro, and I wrote it in my handwriting to make it look like it was just someone that scrolled across. It's a little bit of defiant. Fine art can sometimes be a little bit defiant, so every element of the chair has been discerned through a fine art process.
And your background is in fine art?
Yes, so I'm a printmaker. I trained a long time ago in fine art printmaking, and isn't it lovely to do some interdisciplinary work around recovering what would have been a throwaway chair, something that needed a new lease of life. It was reupholstered by Karen at Abbey Upholstery, and we got to see it stripped down to its carcass and then put back together through our artistry. And to have that interdisciplinary approach just feels lovely. To work with all of these different talents and let that wisdom shine has been a wonderful opportunity as an artist.
And are you go on, Rachel?
And perhaps she's not telling us that her family was a line of upholsters, so this is a beautiful symmetry to it.
So whose family? Sorry. Your family?
Yeah, my father had an upholstery business, and my brother Declan, he also was a furniture maker, and he went to art college as well. And my other brother Brian is a film editor, so I've relied on some of their support to get this over. And the point of this is, the film is called Staying with the Struggle. It's really hard as a creative and as an artist to have an idea and get it through to actually being made. So this whole process has been about sharing your idea and asking others to help. And I think that's where I find my sanctuary. To be here at Chapel FM and to have seen the response to the chair throughout the festival, the people writing on the cards and using the QR code and really enjoying the film that Rachel and I created, that has been a wonderful experience. So I feel like I belong. I feel like the chair belongs here and I belong here. And it is difficult to sometimes take that first step and say, I have an idea, can you help me?
Absolutely. And Rachel, finally, are you happy with what's occurred? Are you happy with the chair?
I love how it's grown. I love how its context changes with every setting it's in. Particularly in schools we found, like, children really engaged with it. There was like we had Allerton Primary CV take it into their hearts really and create a prayer for them off the back of the chair. And they gave it a farewell assembly, and all the children stood up and said where they were from, be it Singapore, Afghanistan, and through that we could tell the story for asylum, which is a very hot button topic on both sides of the Atlantic at the moment.
Yeah, quite right, Rachel.
And this was a nice way of opening that dialogue up without... And just to see the creativity that snowballed from that is absolutely awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's what you've inspired, both of you, by your work, which is just wonderful. I'm sure, people here at Chapel FM will be incredibly, and will have been incredibly intrigued by it. And for us, it's that we're putting a slightly different accent on it, I guess. Although it's got sanctuary written on it, it's very much about sanctuary and safety. I think for us, it's also the fact that it was recovered from a skip, I think, wasn't it? And also it has been literally recovered, reupholstered.
It was actually an ex-display chair at orthopedic chair company. So it's actually ex-display. I'm not sure about where it specifically was recovered from. Can you say anything about that, Bob?
Yeah, the upholsterer told us it was a spare chair. So if someone was having their sofa recovered, they would say, yeah, we've got a temporary chair. It wasn't the most pleasant colour. It was quite a hospital green. But it was just a temporary chair that was, people were having their sofa recovered. So the theme of recovery and sanctuary fit really well together, and we would encourage all the partners who've been involved in it, Leeds Sanctuary, Leeds Christian Community Trust, Leeds Church Institute, Rachel the Poet, Abbey Upholstery, and all the many people, and Ram Films who helped to make the film. All of us came together so that we can encourage churches, Christians, general member of the public, schools, anyone to book the chair, and they can, a bit like you have here at Chapel FM, they can use it for something in their own reflection, and it doesn't have to be a religious or theological reflection. It can be, like I said, we'd like it to get into the train station or Kirkgate Market as a resource for learning.
Well, thank you both very, very much, and congratulations on the chair, which we call the recovery chair. You probably call it something different.
Yeah, we call it the Chair of Sanctuary.
So we're coming up to the end of this short programme about the recovery chair. We're going to read, James and I, a few more pieces that have been written inspired by it and by the theme of recovery. James, do you want to kick off?
Yeah. Well, I've got two pieces, one inspired by a workshop earlier on. Although, do you want to do the recovery pieces first about the chair?
Okay. I recovered when I learned to accept and love myself. I think I've read this already, but it's very good. We'll have it again. When I got it right, I celebrated, and when I got it wrong, I learned and made it right the next time. Lovely. Covering ground, retracing your steps, cover your tracks, cover up, covered in rose petals, covered in leaves. A movement towards and through, again, again, again. Do it again, not like that, better. There, it's getting easier now. Easier to be kind to yourself. Remember the words and say them out loud. And one more before I hand over to James. It means, that's recovery, social activities, fresh air, sports, outdoor games, feeling the healthy pulse of my own heartbeat. Recovery to me is conversation without jealousy and fear, to love unashamed. Oh, that's fantastic. James. Thank you.
So earlier on in the week, there was a workshop, a writing workshop, with Hannah Stone and Claire Wigsell, and we stumbled across a rather strange writing exercise to kind of process your past. And it's sort of like past, present, future in 3 verses. You would think of an animal that represented your past, your present, your future. You would think about an emotion such as naive that represented your past, your present, your future. And then a tool that you had in your past, your present, your future. So for instance, in the past, I was a naive tortoise on a bike. And you can turn these into verses by themselves. And one particular person wrote this. I am a mole, buried deep underground. My molehill is definitely a mountain of my own making. My claws are dull, and I can only dig with a dull, rusty spoon. I am a rabbit, running through the fields. I have spade-like paws, so I can dig my way out of the ground. But it is still my home, my comfort, my safe space. I am a bird, flying high through the sky. I live in the trees. My wings keep me afloat. And I only land if I want to. I am finally free. I am free.
Lovely. Thank you very much, James. So, the end of the writing. Is there anything else you want to read?
There is one more piece about this teapot.
Yes, I think you should explain this teapot. People might be thinking, what is a teapot?
Yeah. Well, many years ago, we had these ladies, I believe from Tea and Tolerance, and they came down to the Seacroft Gala, and they had a tea trolley with many, many, many teacups. And underneath these teacups were conversation starters. And obviously, if you're not good at starting conversations, then useful. And I wondered, could I do that as a writing game? So I came across this checkerboard scar-themed teapot, and I put in sort of tea bags with song titles. And people responded, and they wrote these pieces. Trouble, Elvis Presley. Trouble is in what we breathe, what we've seen, and what we speak. I believe in you. I know you'll go far. I know you'll achieve, succeed. I believe in you. Please believe in you. Rural town, best friend, farmer's daughter, turkey killing time. Father said, money, earn. Showed her how to wring its neck and pluck, looked up, bald turkey running around. Tainted love, without respect, it's just rubbish. Painted love, just a passing dream. Fated love, when you know it's eternal. Saint love, when it's divine. Sweet nothing. What do I want? What do I demand? When I'm with you, my dear, my sweet dear, nothing. Try a little tenderness. You're trying to help. You're giving good advice. You think it's a weakness. You tell it as it is. But kindness can still hurt when delivered with sledgehammer bluntness. So as my advice, my love, try a little tenderness. One step closer to the warmth of your touch, untouched and yet. Uptown girl, please, try a little tenderness. Oh, sweet nothing is nothing for you in this wonderful world. Uptown Girl, Your Trouble. Made in a wonderful world where we all want to make love doing it our way. The boy is mine. You can't have him. He came in the packet, a free gift. Get off. Dancing with myself. I pirouette clockwise, I leap skywards, I tumble, earthed. In a music leads, spirals inwards, I am new, birthed.
Lovely. Thank you, James. Before we round off, we also would like to say something about this. Another thing that's come out of Writing on Air this for the second year. This is our print anthology of writing. 100 poets represented in here. £5, not bad, for 106 poets. The youngest is about 13, and the oldest is 100. And I'm actually going to be slightly self-indulgent here and read the poem or the piece by the 100-year-old who happens to be my mother-in-law. And she might be listening, so I thought, I'm going to take the liberty to do this. And her piece was selected, quite fairly, I have to say, for this anthology. It's called Recovered from Memory. Recovery is such a useful word. It can be a noun, the recovery of someone or something, and a verb, to recover. And it's a very positive word. Being an optimist, I imagine that whatever it is that's been recovered is positive and not negative, like happy days, picnics, and friendship, recovered from memory. And of course there is personal recovery from some unwelcome state of being. Here, I think of my mother and her many recoveries. At 21, she recovered from the flu in the 1918 flu epidemic, while her beloved sister, Dorothy, died. She had lost her mother as a child and endured a dominating father. When she married at 26, this is Mary's mother, she foresaw a happy future and gave birth to twins a year later. However, her husband was violent and neglectful, a frustrated intellectual, more interested in philosophy and music than family. But with the help of her half-brother, she was able to get away from him and build a new life for herself and the twins, eventually supporting the family by running a post office. Throughout her life, she depended on friendships, like Lizzie, her childhood friend, Emily, who worked with her at the post office, and later in life, a friend who shared her intellectual interests, known always as Miss Franklin. Looking back, I credit her recovery to these intellectual interests and her ability to sustain such loyal friendships, and I admire her courage to survive the hardships she suffered, and still to recover. We're coming to the end now of the festival. We've got one more programme, a wonderful audio play by Martin Riley and the musician Jack Glover, which appropriately is called I Want to Go Home. But first of all, I'd really like to thank everybody who's been involved in Writing on Air this year. I'm not going to go through all the names, it'll take me about 3 hours. But I want to thank especially, and Nikki did earlier, Elliot and all his technical volunteers. Let's give them a round of applause, please. All the Chapel FM team, everybody's done their bit just beautifully, and it's all worked like clockwork. I'd like to thank Brona for this lovely chair and Rachel for the poetry that's on it, James, all the volunteers downstairs in the kitchen, on the desk as well, Emmy and Caroline, especially Liz and Tony for the soup.
And you.
Oh, well, I'm not going to thank myself, James. Thank you. But Nikki said something very nice earlier on. But thank you all the same. I'd like, afterwards, finally, to say thank you to all the people who've made programmes. 75 of them, actually, this year in Writing on Air, and the range and breadth and depth of those programmes. Please do listen to them again. And all the Writing on Air programmes that are on the Writing on Air archive that Elliot's compiled, about 500 shows altogether over the last 8 years. So that's it. We might have time for a bit of music before Martin Riley's play, because we're not quite at 5:30, but that's all from us. Thank you so much, James, for your contribution. You've been absolutely brilliant, as ever. Round of applause for everybody involved in Writing on Air, and that's the end of it.